into her already overwhelmed thoughts. The witching hour had struck, and in the twisted shadows of Crestwood, Jessica understood one chilling reality. If the town held secrets, then so did she, and those secrets were whispering her name. What lay beneath Area 51? What horrors awaited the innocent? The truth lurked closer than she'd ever imagined. The wind howled again, a ghostly reminder of what lingered just out of sight. Jessica stepped back, the weight of fear pressing down harder on her chest. The shadows loomed like ancient spirits, and she felt their cold breath against her skin. "This isn't the time to panic," she whispered to herself, but her voice was shaky, barely a thread of sound in the frightening silence. She searched the garden, squinting to pierce the darkness. Shadows shifted, feline, furtive. Perhaps it was just a stray cat, but her mind raced with possibilities that grew monstrous in the night. Each rustle of leaves felt like a threat. Each distant noise morphed into a manifestation of her swirling dread. The figure, whatever it had been, sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Mia?" she called again, her voice trembling. Heart racing, she stepped further out, into the coil of darkness. The backyard was a small, familiar terrain, yet the world felt different. Everything was sinister, her safety bubble crushed beneath the weight of darkened skies. She turned, desperation clawing at her throat. What if she'd lost Mia to whatever shadows were lurking? Mia's laughter, once innocent and bright, echoed in her mind, a sound now steeped in danger. Jessica's thoughts darted like a wounded animal. She remembered the nightmares, the whispers, and the boy who disappeared. The allure of Area 51, just beyond the town's edge, danced in the back of her mind like a cruel joke. Suddenly, a cry pierced the night, a high-pitched wail that brought her to a halt. It sounded just like Mia. Panic surged, and she dashed around the side of the house, rushing to the front yard. The street lamps flickered nervously, casting ghostly glows along the asphalt. As she reached the curb, she spotted a figure standing by the edge of the woods, a small silhouette against the backdrop of trees, swaying eerily. "Mia!" Jessica shouted, but the figure didn't respond. It continued to sway, as if caught in a trance, oblivious to her calls, and dread curdled in Jessica's stomach. Her feet pushed against the ground, speeding her toward the figure, every step laden with urgency. The air turned colder as she shifted closer, heart racing louder. She felt the hairs on her neck rise, and a primal instinct told her to stop. Yet she couldn't leave her daughter alone, not like this. As she reached the edge of the trees, the figure turned, revealing a pale face half hidden in shadow. It was Mia. Relief flooded her, but it was quickly tainted by confusion. "Mama, it's coming," Mia whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "We have to leave, now." Taking Mia's hand, Jessica's protective instincts kicked in. "What, you mean, sweetheart? What's coming?" They retreated a bit as large shadows emerged from behind the trees, floating closer like a dark storm. "I saw it in my dream," Mia said, her eyes wide. "It's real. They're coming for all of us." Just then, an unnatural buzzing sound filled the air, a low hum that vibrated through the ground. Jessica looked up to the sky. A distant light flickered above the treetops, casting ominous shadows across the streets of Crestwood. Panic surged anew, but there was no time to question what Mia had seen. They had to move, to escape whatever was about to descend upon them. The ground shook beneath their feet. Jessica could hear the echoes of 100 whispers in the wind, all saying her name. She grabbed Mia tight, ready to run, but faced the glaring shadows, the advancing light. What were they? What was happening? As they turned towards the safety of their home, a chilling thought struck Jessica.
If level 7 was real and the boy had vanished, what if they were next? And with that thought, she pushed forward, racing against whatever darkness waited to blanket Crestwood in horror. Jessica forced herself to move, but her heart hammered like a drum in her chest. Fear was a living entity, gripping her lungs, making every breath feel like a chore. The shadows pressed closer, and with every flicker of the ominous light above, something deep within told her they were not just random specters of the night. "Mia," she breathed, pulling her daughter tighter, feeling the warmth of her small hand, a lifeline against the encroaching dread. "We need to get back inside." But Mia didn't budge. Her wide eyes focused on the woods, pupils dilating like black holes, absorbing the terror surrounding them. "We can't go back in there. They might see us." An electric buzz crackled through the air, making Jessica's skin tingle. The shadows grew thicker, fuller, taking on monstrous forms that twisted and writhed as if possessing a will of their own. "What do you mean? Who's going to see us?" Jessica demanded, panic coating her words like venom. "I don't know," Mia cried, her voice wobbling. "But when I did, it was like a dream, but real. They know where we are, Mama. We have to hide." Without thinking, Jessica pulled her daughter back toward the house. She still clung to the sense of familiarity it represented. They were only steps away from the door, yet the air grew colder, thicker, as though a fog had pooled just above the ground. She could feel the whispers scratching at the edges of her mind. Were they warning her or beckoning? As they reached the porch, a low growl resonated from the direction of the woods. It wasn't the sound of an animal, but something far more terrifying, a sound that spoke of predatory malice. Jessica hesitated. Should they stay hidden or take the risk of running inside? "Mama, come on," Mia urged, her small feet tapping nervously against the wooden
Planks. The front door loomed ahead, but Jessica turned to glance back. The light flickered again, pulse-like, illuminating a figure. It stood still, tall, grotesque, its features indistinct, but for the low ripple of its twisted form. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but she couldn't. "Mia, you need to trust me. We go inside, now." With a shove, she flung the door open. Inside the house, normalcy felt like a false promise. The quietness was deafening, making the reverberating calls from outside feel all the more threatening. Jessica ushered Mia in and slammed the door shut, locking it with trembling hands. The house felt like a sanctuary, yet shadows pooled in corners, whispering secrets she dared not dwell upon. A strange vibration thrummed through the walls, like a heartbeat, slow, steady, a metronome to their fear. "What do we do now?" Mia asked, her voice quaking. "I don't know, sweetheart." Jessica glanced around, the familiar surroundings now suffocating. "We stay quiet. We listen." But as they stood together in that ominous silence, the hum intensified. It staggered in waves, pulsing harder, making the windows rattle. The shadows outside flickered like flames, animated by the unseen malice beyond. Then came the knocking. It was rhythmic, almost mocking, a steady rapping against the door, as if someone, or something, awaited entry. Jessica's heart sank. They were not safe. Whatever was out there wanted in. "Mama," Mia whimpered, gripping her mother's side. "Stay behind me," Jessica whispered fiercely, gathering her resolve. She edged toward the door, steeling herself against the unknown. Each knock echoed louder, a relentless chant, sending shivers down Jessica's spine. Gripping the doorknob, she hesitated, caught in the grip of anticipation and dread. But just as she began to turn the handle, a voice sliced through the darkness, familiar, sweet, and terrifyingly close. "Mama, let me in." Every hair on Jessica's body stood on end. Nothing could prepare her for what lay just beyond. And suddenly, the world tilted,
and she knew that this night would leave scars deeper than she could ever imagine. What awaited them if she dared to open that door? The door shook violently, sending tremors through the house. Whatever had come for them was coming fast. "Did you hear that?" Jessica turned to Mia, her mind racing. "Did you hear what it said?" But Mia was already disappearing into the hallway, a low, darkened path leading to the heart of their home, toward the very place Jessica had hoped they'd escape from. Mia, wait! Could she follow her daughter into that brewing storm, or had the shadows already torn them apart? Deep down, she knew. The answer rested on the cusp of the door, and if she didn't act fast, it might swallow them both whole. "Mama, help me!" Mia's voice was a scream swallowed by the darkness, pulling Jessica's attention back to the hall, where the shadows pooled like ink. "Mia!" Panic surged through her. Jessica bolted after her. The darkness seemed to quiver, reaching out as if it had a mind.
Its own, eager to snatch her away. "Mama, please!" Another cry echoed, sharper now, tinged with desperation. The air turned heavy as she raced down the corridor, each step a battle against the suffocating dread that whispered about horrific truths. The house felt alive, breathing with malevolence, every creak and groan a warning. "Mia!" she shouted, her voice cracking. The hallway stretched on, an endless tunnel vanishing into shadow. The walls pulsed, flickering like dying lights. Were they watching? Was it even real? A door swung open at the far end, tall and looming, an invitation or a threat. It was the playroom, a sanctuary of laughter turned grave. Memories flickered like the lights, flashbacks of Mia playing, now replaced by something sinister. "Mia!" She reached the door, her heart racing like a wild animal, clawing at her chest. She stepped into the room. Her breath hitched. It was empty. Where did she go? Then she saw it. Mia's favorite doll sitting motionless in the far corner, its glassy eyes fixated on the open window. The moonlight cast eerie shadows across the room, twisting the doll's smile into something grotesque. Jessica felt the chill run down her spine. "Mia!" Her hand trembled as she reached for the doll, ready to hurl it out the window if it moved. She turned her back to the door, breathing hard, scanning the room. A sound flitted in from the hallway. Whispers. Multiple voices, murmuring in a language she didn't recognize. The sensation of being watched crept over her like frost from the floor. Just then, a gentle tug on her shirt made her spin around, and there was Mia, pale and wide-eyed, peering from the other side of the door. "Mama, don't let them get you! They're coming!" "Who's coming?" Jessica gasped, pulling her daughter in close. But the weight of dread pressed in on them, an invisible siege inching ever closer. "They're angry," Mia whispered, eyes darting nervously toward shadows that danced in the corners. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial hush. "They don't want us here. We have to escape." Jessica's mind raced. Escape? How? The house morphed around them. Hallway walls closed in, dimming the already sparse light. Mia's fingers crawled around a deep scratch across her arm. Jessica's heart sank. "What happened to you?" She knelt, eyes drilling into Mia's, terrified, shaking, but resolve hardened on her tiny face. "They showed me things, Mama," she whispered, inhaling shaky breaths. "Horrible things. We need to leave now." A loud crash echoed from the living room, glass shattering, followed by a guttural snarl that froze Jessica in place. The rancid stench of something foul crept under her nose, coiling around her throat. "Mama, move!" Mia tugged, the slight figure of her daughter radiating urgency. Jessica turned toward the door, but a shadow loomed in the entryway, a nightmare brought to life. It transformed from the darkness, skeletal and twisted, a grotesque reflection of the world outside. She barely had time to scream before it lunged toward them. "No!" Jessica threw her arm around Mia and dashed toward the back of the house.
The walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with her racing heart, amplifying the terror that bled through the air. They needed to get to the back door. That was their only hope. But somewhere, deep in the shadows behind them, the whispers grew louder. An invitation to look back, to see the truth lurking in the darkness. Jessica felt them tugging at her sleeves, urging her to stop, to listen, to succumb to the fear that bubbled at the edge of her mind. "Mama, what is it?" Mia's voice strained, filled with the innocence of childhood, but weighed down by something tragic. The shadow shifted again, its shape a mass of despair and hunger. Jessica gritted her teeth, a growl rising from her chest. "No, not today!" As they scampered toward the back door, the house moaned, desperate to hold them captive. Each step was a battle against an unseen force. Were they really trying to escape, or were they simply stumbling deeper into the abyss? And just when she thought they'd reached freedom, Jessica heard the voice again, echoing, melodic, cruel. "Mama, let me in." Jessica froze, her mind spinning. The darkness had more to unfold, and the truth lay just beyond those shadows. What secrets waited to be uncovered? The door shook violently behind them, as if in answer, desperate to reveal the horrors they had barely begun to comprehend. Did she dare to open her eyes and see what was hidden? The door trembled violently, the sound like a fist pounding against flesh. Jessica's instincts flared, urging her to flee, but the pulling grip of fear chained her feet to the creaking floorboards. The whispers swelled, intertwining with the urgent need for escape and the uncertainty of the dark. "Just a little further, Mama!" Mia's voice sliced through the chaos, a thin thread of hope among the chaos. Jessica tightened her grip on Mia's hand, the warmth of her daughter anchoring her in the vortex of terror. "Mia, we need to go," she urged, her voice steady despite the tremor running through her bones. But Mia didn't move. "No, we can't leave her." Panic flooded her eyes. "She needs our help." That name, her, hung in the air, twisted and heavy. Jessica's heart lurched. "Mia? Who?" Mia's gaze darted back to the door. "The doll! It's not just a doll!" A shiver skated down Jessica's spine as she glanced back at the forsaken playroom. The doll's smile had contorted into a sinister grin, lips parting slowly, revealing a void darkness within. Eyes that once held innocence now burned with an unsettling glow, no longer just inanimate, but rather something more, something alive. "Mama," Mia's voice faded. "Help her." "Help who?" A hard knot twisted in Jessica's stomach as dread pooled like ice water. But instinct, the primal need to protect her child, stemmed the tide of fear trying to drown her. "Please, Mama." Mia's plea cracked like glass shattering in the silence. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, a swirling mass that coalesced into a figure. It glided through the doorway, merging body in blackness, eyes gleaming wickedly from the depths. This thing was no doll. It bore a twisted human-like form, adorned in remnants of decayed lace. Soft whispers escaped it as fragments of garbled words spilled into the air. Jessica felt her breath stutter at the sight. "Mia, we need to run!" But the tiny face beside her was fixated on the apparition. "Mama, wait! She was trapped! We need to save her!" "No!" Jessica growled, yanking Mia away. She couldn't afford to look back. They were mere moments away from being consumed. The back door loomed within reach, a sliver of potential freedom, but their path darkened. The shadows writhed like serpents, curling around her ankles, tugging her backward, whispering sweet, beckoning. "Mama." Mia's small voice pierced the clamor, her eyes wide, as if she were watching something dreadful unfold. "Mama, don't leave me." The room vibrated with a suffocating weight, a malevolent laughter thundering through the air. "Stay with us." Jessica tugged her daughter closer, cradling her protectively, feeling the urgent pounding of her heart racing against the encroaching darkness. "On 3, Mia. I'll count and then we run, okay?" "Okay," Mia whispered, though the fear clouded her eyes. 1, 2, 3. With a burst of adrenaline, they lunged toward the door. Jessica flung it open, the cool night air rushing in like a tidal wave of relief. But as they stepped outside, the whispers vanished, replaced by a chilling silence. It wasn't over. The moon's ashen glow illuminated the yard, revealing something horrifying. The trees stood twisted and grotesque, forming black silhouettes that danced unsettlingly. An unholy chant rose from the ground, a chorus of lost voices swirling around them. "Mama, what are those?" Mia whispered, clutching her arm tightly as she peered into the night. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we can't stay." The shadows ahead twisted, revealing mangled faces and clawing hands. They were trapped still, but not by the house, by something else, something waiting just beyond sight. A shiver danced up Jessica's spine as a voice quipped eerily from behind. "You can never leave, not until you know the truth." Jessica turned, her heart pounding hard enough to break through her chest. The shadows whispered again. Memories of laughter, pain, and anger wound together, forming a cacophony of betrayal. "Mia!" She grabbed her daughter's hand just as the shadows advanced, igniting the air around them with a suffocating dread. "Mama, what do we do?" Mia trembled. Jessica's mind raced, searching desperately for clarity as they stood on the brink of unimaginable terror. And then an overwhelming scream split the stillness, pulling at the very edges of her sanity. "Help! Please!" It was a voice she recognized. Her own. The door behind them slammed shut, sealing their fate within a maze of shadows and whispers. And just beyond it all, the truth awaited, cloaked in darkness and despair. Would they find a way to confront the horror, or were they destined to unravel in the clutches of what was never?
Supposed to be? The silence pressed in unbearably, thick and palpable, as Jessica and Mia stood frozen beneath the haunting gaze of the twisted shadows. Panic surged in Jessica's chest, but she forced herself to breathe, every inhale feeling like shards of glass down her throat. "Mia," she whispered, dread knotting tighter in her gut, "we have to stay calm." "Where do we go?" Mia's voice trembled, glancing from the creeping shadows to her mother, searching for strength where even Jessica felt frail. The shadows flitted like fingers through the night air, reaching for them, beckoning with grotesque allure. "Anywhere but here!" Jessica snapped, her instinct to protect flaring hot against the encroaching terror. "We need to keep moving." But where? The yard was now a vast, living nightmare, every corner echoing anguish. As they turned, the shadows pulsated, morphing into shapes not quite tangible, yet viscerally familiar. Wretched faces contorted in anguish, unrecognizable, yet eerily similar. "Help me," the voice rang out again, a pitiful wail, chilling Jessica to the bone. Desperate to block it out, she squeezed Mia's hand, pulling her forward. They darted past the edge of the house, where the moonlight caught fleeting glimpses of the apparition, illuminating terrifying details. A lace dress with tattered edges, and hair like twisted roots. "Mama, I can hear her," Mia cried, stumbling slightly. Jessica could feel her daughter's heart racing with fear, mirroring her own. "She needs us!" "Mia, focus!" Jessica urged, but it was too late. Mia dug her heels into the ground, her wide eyes locked onto something behind the house, a forgotten swing set draped in shadows. "Please, we can't leave her." Mia's voice was a desperate plea, tugging at something deep within Jessica's soul. "No, Mia, we have to go."
She gripped her daughter's arm, urgency clawing at her. But the shadows surged forward, undulating shapes that whispered promises of safety, of peace, weaving through their thoughts, planting seeds of confusion. "Mama!" The sound of Mia's voice hushed under the whispers, yet Jessica caught the pleading look on her daughter's face. It was a mixture of innocence and knowing, as if Mia were already entwined in some hidden truth. "Mama, don't you hear them?" Jessica felt the ground lurch beneath her, the earth demanding her attention. The whispered urgency now became a rhythmic pulse, drumming in her ears, urging her to understand, to listen. "No," she choked, fighting it, clenching Mia's hand like a lifeline. "Mama, help her!" For a moment she faltered, glancing back toward the torrent of shadows. A flicker of light caught her attention, a glimmer struggling against the suffocating darkness. What was it? "Mama, please!" "All right," Jessica finally shouted, surrendering to Mia's connection. They stepped back toward the shadows, compelled by a desperate desire they didn't fully understand. Faint outlines, human shapes twisted in agony, fragmented stories begging for release, crept closer. Jessica's heart raced as she struggled against the tide pulling them in. "Mama, we can help her!" Before she could object, the pulls intensified. Something in her mind, a memory,
perhaps, unfolded as she faced the remnants of anguish, faces that twisted into hers, haunting yet familiar. She gasped, realization hitting hard. Those tortured souls were once alive. "Jessica!" A breathy voice eased through the chaos. This time it used her name, breaking through the fog of horror. The shadows seethed in response, swirling angrily. "You shouldn't have come." The grip on Mia's hand tightened, adrenaline spiking. Jessica turned to run, but the earth itself seemed to conspire against them. She could feel the shadows clawing, an unseen force that yanked her backward. "Mama!" They stumbled, falling to their knees. The whispers were deafening now, a maelstrom of cries overloading her senses. The darkness enveloped them, dragging them deeper into despair, where even the moonlight felt tainted. But with the chaos came a single clear thought. To survive, Jessica had to unravel what this place wanted from them, no matter how horrific that truth might be. "Mia, hold on tight." With a risky surge of strength, they both fought against the shadows, claws scratching at the air. Then something shifted. The cold grasp released momentarily, and Jessica seized the chance. They bolted again, toward the forest line that bordered the edge of the yard, heartbeats pounding as they pushed through dense branches. Every step felt like a countdown, the darkness shrieking behind them, a promise of relentless pursuit. And then came the haunting echo, filling the night air. "You'll never escape until you learn the truth." Jessica's heartbeat thundered in her ears as they stumbled into the tree line. What awaited in those woods was a mystery of its own, and the looming sense of danger loomed ever closer. Whatever lay ahead would either be their salvation or their final descent into terror. What truth was she being compelled to uncover? And would she risk everything to save her daughter, or would they both be lost in the shadows forever? Branches whipped against Jessica's face as she and Mia plunged deeper into the forest's unforgiving embrace. The shadows behind them retreated, but not before unleashing a chorus of anguished banshee cries that echoed through the trees. Jessica's heart raced, each beat hammering out a desperate prayer for protection. "Stay close, Mia," she shouted, forcing her feet to move even as the darkness around them pulsed with menace. "Mama, I can't hear her anymore," Mia whispered, her small voice trembling with fatigue and guilt. The frantic energy of the house felt like a nightmare slowly fading into the distance, yet the weight of the unknown was a heavy cloak draped over them both. Jessica tightened her grip on Mia's hand, glancing back at the shadowed path they had abandoned. "We need to find safety, somewhere we can think." Ahead, a glimmer of light flickered through a gap in the trees, pulling Jessica's focus.
Ignoring the warns ringing in her head, she led Mia toward it, each step against the dread that clung to them. As they approached, the light revealed an old run-down cabin, its wooden
structure sagging under the burden of countless storms. A part of Jessica wanted to dismiss it, but desperation overruled caution. Let's check it out. We can catch our breath inside. The door creaked on its rusty hinges, swinging open with an eerie invitation. Inside, dusty furniture lay scattered, covered in ratty sheets that swayed slightly in the breeze, mocking spectral ghosts. Jessica could feel an oppressive silence encasing them, thicker than the darkness outside. "Mama, what if it's haunted?" Mia's voice quivered as she peered into the dark corners. The unsettling shadows seemed to stretch toward them like skeletal fingers. Jessica knelt beside her, forcing a brave smile even as anxiety twisted in her gut. "We're just looking for a place to hide." They stepped cautiously inside, and the door shut behind them with a soft thud, trapping them in the musty air. The light danced oddly as the wind caught through the cracks, flickering in time with the sinking knot in Jessica's stomach. "What is this place?" Mia asked, glancing around. Jessica squinted into the gloom. The cabin felt like a time capsule, holding its breath in a forgotten world. On a rickety shelf, scattered photographs lay haphazardly. Jessica picked one up. It depicted a family, all smiles in front of a home that looked eerily similar to the one they had just fled. "Mama, look!" Mia tugged on her sleeve, pointing with wide eyes at a dusty mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. As Jessica turned, her heart plummeted. Reflected were not just their anxious faces, but something else. A swirling mist that coalesced into the distorted outline of the specter they had seen in the yard. Its eyes, hollow and despairing, bore into Jessica's own. "Leave," it hissed softly, its voice trembling through the glass. "Mama!" Mia screamed, stumbling back as if burned. Jessica felt a shock wave of fear crash over her, paralyzing her limbs. Behind them, the cabin seemed to pulse, alive with memories of sorrow that echoed in the walls. "What do you want?" Jessica yelled, desperate and terrified. "Learn," the figure replied, intertwining its despair with the air. "Unravel the truth." Instinct drove Jessica forward, backing away from the mirror, dragging Mia with her. They needed to escape this cursed cabin. The air felt heavier, thickening around them as the specter molded into something more sinister. A howling wind whipped through the room. "Mama, I'm scared." Mia's cry renewed Jessica's resolve. They burst through the door, pounding back into the woods, the shadows outside roiling like a dark ocean, crashing against the shore of their sanity. Where were they going? What truth were they meant to uncover? Each breath escaped in frantic gasps, every sound a warning, every shadow a reminder. Time was running out, and the very forest conspired against them. As they stumbled into a small clearing, itself glowing dimly with an unnatural light, Jessica felt a shiver crawl up her spine. What lay ahead was yet another layer of terror, begging to reveal its secrets. "Can we go back?" Mia pleaded. Confusion swirling in her innocent eyes. "Not now," Jessica snapped, urgency cracking her voice. "We have to find out what this is." But as they stood in horror, the light intensified, illuminating the twisted roots of a massive tree, dark and gnarled like a monstrous heart. The whispers rushed back, weaving around them, not just pleading, but commanding. "Reveal the truth." Jessica felt the ground beneath her ripple, vibrations echoing the command. She had to decide now. What price would she pay to unravel the shrouded mysteries of this night? And what darkness awaited them if she failed? Jessica stood paralyzed, the whispers swirling like angry bees, engulfing her and Mia in a suffocating haze of dread. The roots of the monstrous tree twisted and writhed, as though they were alive, beckoning her closer. Fear clawed at her insides, but the urgency in the air gripped her like a vice. "What truth?" she murmured, her voice barely rising above the cacophony. Mia tugged at her sleeve again, her body quaking. "Mama, please, let's go back." But something deep inside Jessica urged her to stay. Was this the answer they had been running from? Clenching her jaw, she whispered, "Just a little longer, Mia." The shadows around them darkened, swirling with menace as the branches of the tree stretched, creating sinister shapes that loomed overhead. The bark was rough and curling, marked with strange symbols that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the forest. "Learn the past." The chorus intensified, pressing against Jessica's mind, suffocating her reason. "Is it about the family in the picture?" she ventured. "Are they trapped here?" Her heart raced, battling the fear that threatened to consume her. The gnarled roots shifted, and for a moment the ground shook, sending jagged tremors through her feet. A scream tore from Mia's lips as they both stumbled back, their eyes wide as the mist solidified into a figure. A woman, or at least a reflection of one, emerged from the shadows. Her clothes tattered like the cabin's curtains. Her eyes, cold and hollow, matched the specter from the mirror, but this entity was more tangible. She extended a bony finger toward the roots, her lips moving in silent beckons. "Unravel." Jessica's instinct screamed at her to flee, yet something held her, an invisible tether binding her to this moment, this haunting. "What do you want us to see?" The roots began to tremble, opening like a gateway to some dark horror. Mia squeezed her hand tightly, her small fingers digging in, as if to anchor them both against the chaos spilling out. "Follow," the woman whispered, her voice lilting like a lost song, each word carving a path through Jessica's resolve. Without thinking, Jessica stepped forward, the earth squelching beneath her shoes, pulling her in. "No!" she gasped, feeling Mia's grip falter. "Mama!" Instinct took over. Jessica turned, yanking Mia tight against her. "We can't be here," she cried out, adrenaline igniting every nerve. But the ground trembled again, reverberating with
the phantom's command. "Reveal what lies beneath." Before she could think, the shadows around the tree lunged forward, grasping at them with gnarled branches and misty tendrils. Each touch was ice cold, chilling her blood. They were overwhelmed, darkness encroaching from all sides. Jessica felt her back hit the rough bark of the tree as Mia let out a heart-wrenching wail. The air crackled with raw energy, and Jessica's vision blurred. Was she losing them both to this hellish entity? "Stop!" she bellowed, a final gasp of defiance as she fought against the encroaching dread. And just like that, the grasping shadows froze. A dreadful stillness filled the air, hanging heavy with anticipation. Jessica's breath came in sharp gasps, her heart racing as she stared into the hollow eyes of the specter, searching for the truth buried within its depths. A flicker of hope ignited within her. "If I unravel the truth," Jessica breathed, turning back to the tree, determination setting her voice, "will you let us go?" The woman's expression seemed to waver, flickering like a dying flame. Behind her, the roots pulsated once more, their power throbbing. With each beat, Jessica felt the compelling need for resolution, ready to confront whatever lay hidden in that darkness. "Speak," the specter urged, her voice now a raspy wind through the branches. But Jessica knew. It wasn't just about survival. It was about facing the horrors not just of the forest, but of their past. What would it take to break the cycle? "Please," she implored, steadied by the strength of her love for Mia. "We need to know." Then the world around them erupted into chaos, shadows swirling into a maelstrom, and Jessica realized with terrifying clarity, the truth would come at a price. As the darkness surged forward, swallowing the clearing whole, a chilling thought crashed into her mind. Was she prepared to sacrifice everything for the sake of uncovering the hidden past? With Mia's terrified gasp echoing in her ears, she felt herself being pulled into the void, caught between the present and a long-buried secret waiting to be unleashed. What awaited them on the other side? Would they find freedom or become part of the story forever? The darkness swallowed them. Chaos enveloped Jessica and Mia in a suffocating embrace, pulling them deeper into the void. An overwhelming force dragged at Jessica's body, a frigid grip around her lungs constricting her breath. She sensed Mia's small form slipping, panic transforming into adrenaline. "Mama!" Mia screamed, her voice barely a whisper against the swirling tempest of shadows. "Hold on to me," Jessica cried, panic fueling her urgency. She clenched her daughter's fragile wrist, feeling the trembling of those tiny fingers. Suddenly, they landed with a heavy thud, the ground beneath them shifting from sheer nothingness to a solid and damp earth. Jessica blinked rapidly, trying to adjust her eyesight. A dim light flickered on the horizon, pulsating like a dying star. "Mama, where are we?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling as she clutched at
Jessica's arm, eyes wide like saucers. "I don't know, but we need to keep moving," Jessica murmured, her heart hammering against her ribs. The air was heavy with a sickening sweetness, as if decay pooled just beneath the surface of this seemingly untouched land. They stumbled forward, carefully navigating through the muck. Each step felt heavy, almost deliberate, as though the ground sought to hold them back. Shadows flitted at the edges of her perception, evoking the chilling sensation of being watched. With each breath, the uncanny whispers from before echoed in her mind, a cacophony of voices, all pleading to be heard. They melded together, weaving a sinister song that spoke of sorrow, of pain, of dark histories festering beneath the soil. "Let's find the light," Jessica said, urging herself to remain hopeful despite the encroaching dread. But the closer they inched toward the light, the more it flickered. Shadows twisted under its glow, writhing like snakes in a pit, and Jessica's unease grew. As they approached, the ground fell away, exposing a gaping chasm. The light seemed to emanate from within, swirling in luminescent hues of sickly green and jade. Voices cried out from the depths, the tone warped and frantic. "Jessica!" a voice surged over the rest. It was deep and familiar, slicing through the tumult of whispers. She froze. The voice resonated within her, igniting memories she had long tried to bury. "Dad?" she gasped, stepping closer to the edge, an impulse that set off warning bells deep within her. "Mama, no!" Mia tugged at her, panic lacing her voice. But Jessica's resolve was stronger. "If it's him, I need to know why." Suddenly, shadows erupted from the ground, tendrils of darkness writhing, grasping at her ankles, pulling her toward the chasm. She fought against them, clawing at the cloying mud, her muscles straining against the overwhelming force. "Please, stop!" Mia screamed, terror etched across her face. "Mia, hold on!" Jessica gritted her teeth, summoning every ounce of her strength. She could not let the darkness take them. Not now. "Release!" that voices began to chant, the haunting depth resonating, vibrating against her bones. The whispers morphed into screams, raw and anguished, as images flashed in her mind. Her father's face twisted in torment, the house on the hill burning, the anguished wails of her family echoing in the distance. "No, you won't take us!" she yelled, desperately locking eyes with Mia, whose expression spoke of shared fear, but also trust and loyalty.
With a final surge of energy, Jessica reached into the depths of her fear. "I will uncover the truth," she shouted defiantly, the shadows clinging tighter, as though startled by her bravery. As she leaned toward the chasm, a blinding flash erupted from its depths, sending both Jessica and Mia tumbling backward. The world spun as the light shot forth, a chaotic explosion of colors, illuminating the forest beyond and temporarily pushing back the oppressive darkness. And then silence fell. They lay gasping, eyes wide, hearts racing. The swirling haze of shadow retreated slightly, revealing a path ahead. But there was something else. A figure stood at the end, cloaked and watching, shadowy hands outstretched. Fear lanced through Jessica's veins. "Who are you?" she croaked, trying to push herself up. The figure tilted its head, the hollow gaze not meeting hers, but she felt its presence crawling under her skin. "Will you know your past?" it asked, words heavy like stones, laden with dread. "Yes," Jessica whispered, her heart pounding. But inside, a shiver of doubt slithered through her mind. What price would she have to pay for the truth? Would they be able to leave after all? As the air thickened with anticipation, Jessica sensed ominous threads weaving tighter around her, sensing that the real horror was only beginning. Then she realized the shrieking shadows were rising again, ready to devour them whole. Would they survive this torment, or would they be entrapped in a cycle of suffering forever? Jessica blinked against the searing light that surrounded her, a kaleidoscope of colors bursting like fireworks in the night sky. With Mia clutched tight against her, she drew a deep breath, heart racing. But suddenly, the brightness faded, leaving only silence. The figure before them was a silhouette against the backdrop of shadows, a presence that felt familiar but ominous. Dread filled the space around them, thick and suffocating. "Will you know your past?" it demanded, voice echoing like a distant memory. "Yes," Jessica's voice rang out, audibly shaking. "We need to know." But as the words left her mouth, an icy tendril of doubt gripped her heart. What would it mean to confront the haunted history intertwined with her family? Could this truth bring them freedom or bind them forever? The figure began to shift, smoke-like wisps curling around its frame. Suddenly, images flashed before their eyes. Memories of a home filled with laughter, quickly engulfed in flames. Screams of anguish mixing with Jessica's own cries. A life torn to shreds in an instant. "This is my past. It's real," she whispered, her eyes wide with horror as the specter of pain rushed back to her in haunting clarity. "Mama, I'm scared." Mia's small voice trembled beside her. Jessica instinctively turned to her daughter, taking in Mia's frightened face, eyes glittering with unshed tears. In that moment, she knew what she had to do. They were in this together, and together they would unravel the truth. The shadowy figure extended its hands, hovering at the edge of the chasm. "Face what was lost," it urged, and with a wave of its hand, the ground beneath them shifted, revealing ancient roots and twisted vines that seemed to pulse with life. "Decide what must remain." "Stay close," Jessica whispered, feeling the strength of determination pulse through her veins. "We'll face this, Mia, I promise." With quickened steps, they approached the chasm. Below, the air was alive with echoes. Some were melodic, hymns of joy lost to time, but most were cries of despair, haunting wails that clawed at Jessica's heart like a bitter wind. "Tell me," she shouted, as she felt the shadows grasping for their ankles again, wanting to drag them into oblivion. "What do you want from us?" The voice above them laughed softly, but it was not mockery. It was rueful acknowledgment of shared pain. Only you can uncover the truths held captive. Taking a deep, empowering breath, Jessica leaned into the chasm, determined not to back down, no matter the cost. "Show me!" Bright light flooded them again, forcing her to shield her eyes. When it cleared, she was standing in the same home she remembered from childhood, a pristine timber of warmth, laughter woven in every corner. But as she walked through the threshold, the sounds faded, replaced by crisp flashes of terrible memories. There were her parents, younger, vibrant with life, but always casting shadows. They spoke of protection, fear, and the darkness waiting just outside that perfect window. Suddenly, the scene shifted. The flames ignited, consuming everything. Her father struggling, her mother crying out in a futile attempt to save them. "Mama, no!" Jessica screamed, but it felt like her voice would never reach them. The figure at the edge of the chasm grinned sadly, observing the spectacle unfold. "You can change the course," it whispered, voice carrying like smoke on the wind. "You must confront the past before it consumes you." "Mama, help me!" The voice became Mia's again, and Jessica felt her heart split. She had to protect Mia, break the cycle of loss and darkness. Jessica took Mia's hand, rallying every ounce of bravery. "We're not afraid. Whatever shadows lie ahead, we will face it." With those words, a surge of warmth cascaded over them, flooding the chasm with light, illuminating even the darkest corners of that childhood devastation. Flames flickered away, revealing the truth hidden beneath. The roots of the tree, once twisted and gnarled, uncoiled to form a luminous path. "Come with me, Mia." They stepped onto the glowing roots, new strength anchoring their steps. The shadows shrieked and fizzled at their approach, recoiling in the face of their unwavering spirit. "Together we can rewrite this tale." Together they leaped across the void, landing firmly in a new realm, familiar yet transformed. An ethereal landscape of light and beauty, where whispered hopes melded with the fresh scent of blooming flowers. "No more fear," Jessica breathed, looking at Mia, who smiled back with understanding. They had weathered the storm, and now they were free. As they began to walk, hand in hand, breaking through the veils of darkness, they felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of their haunted history. The figure lingered at the edge of the chasm, shadows slinking away, a gentle harmony vibrating through the air. "Your truth has set you free," it whispered. As they turned, the path behind them shimmered, illuminating the way out of darkness, a chapter written but now closed. The world stretched before them, filled with promise and hope. Jessica took a deep breath, the air now sweet and warm against her skin. "Let's go home," she said softly, squeezing Mia's hand tighter. They were no longer prisoners of their past, but architects of their future. With new light shining bright, they ventured forward, ready to embrace life, allowing their hearts to heal. In the peaceful breeze of liberation, they moved on, stepping out of the shadows forever. But you aren't done yet. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters more than you know. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about the ending. Let's dive into that discussion. And listen, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let's keep the spirit of storytelling alive.